Hey there, thanks for being here. It's time for, once again, the Cape Coral Real Estate Market Update video. I do one of these videos every single month. If you're not familiar with these, basically, I'm going to give you the rundown over the stats and the facts and the figures of the Cape Coral real estate market, at least as they pertain to last month, what they put up last month. So we're going to be talking about September of 2024's numbers. I'll give you some general stats, and then we'll break things down by category. We'll talk about off-water single-family homes, we'll talk about condos, of course we'll talk about golf access homes, and then we'll also talk about vacant lots, and we'll touch on the rental market as well, because I think that's an increasingly important part of this Cape Coral real estate market, and it's a pretty good bellwether of where we're heading as a market. So make sure you stick around for those. I'm also going to give you some advice if you're maybe a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, as well as some advice if maybe you're a seller in this Cape Coral real estate market. So make sure you stick around for those. The chapters are down there if you want to look at some individual part of this report. It's usually a pretty long report, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So feel free to use those chapters down there if you'd like to skip ahead to a certain portion of this report. By the way, I do one of these videos every single month, but these are in addition to the weekly videos that I put out. I do a new one every single week, just on really good informational topics on Southwest Florida and Cape Coral. And sometimes we're talking about insurance. Sometimes, I'm showing you a really neat property or series of properties that we're comparing. So make sure you reach over and hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to this channel. And if you get anything out of this video, do me a favor and hit the like button as well. If you don't know who I am, my name is Dustin Guthrie. I'm a longtime resident of Cape Coral, Florida, and I've been a near 20-year full-time real estate broker here in Cape Coral and Southwest Florida. And if you do have a need here in Southwest Florida, if you are buying or selling a property, I would love it if you'd reached out to me. My contact information, of course, is right there on the screen. It's also down in the description of this video. Call, text, or email me anytime. I would love to hear from you and hear about your real estate goals and tell you a little bit how I can help you out with those. I still work one-on-one with every single client of mine. I'm not going to pass you off to a junior agency like some of these other brokers around here will. So I would love to hear from you. But with that being said, let's get started with this report. If you've seen some of these other reports that I do every month, I always like to start out just for fun by showing you the lowest sales of the month as well as the highest sales of the month. So we're talking about the entire month of September 2024 in the entire city of Cape Coral. So let's go ahead and get started with those. All right, so let's start with the lowest sales of the month of September for the entire city of Cape Coral. If you're familiar with these reports, I usually give you just the lowest condo sale and the lowest overall single-family home sale, but I'm going to add one or two more categories to this time, and I'm going to give you the lowest golf access home, and I'm going to give you, when we do the highest sales, I'll do the highest off-water single-family home in addition. So let's start off with the lowest condo sale of the month, and that was this one over here at 4619 Southeast 5th Place, unit number 7. It's in the Bryan Court condo community down there in the Southeast Cape. This is a little 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and honestly, it's not in bad shape. It's just really small, just under 700 square feet of living area. Built in 1980 over there. It's a nice little area of the Southeast Cape, but this one was listed for $130,000 and ended up selling in a month and a half for $125,000. So that was the lowest residential sale of the month of September, and that's a little bit cheaper than we've seen over the last few months. I believe we haven't gotten too often under $150,000 for the condos, but this looks like a pretty good deal over there for a little 1-bedroom, 1-bath. The kitchen looked newer, but congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on that one. $125,000 was the lowest condo sale of the month. All right, let's jump over to just regular single-family homes. The lowest sale of the month of September was this property over here in the Southeast Cape again, 2128 Southeast 15th Street. This was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It had a 2-car garage. It looked to be in pretty rough shape, though, over there in the Southeast Cape. But at least this one was on central water and sewer and just needed some TLC in there. It had quite a bit to do on the inside, needed some updating, and it probably needed some new things like an air conditioner and probably a roof. But just under 1,300 square feet of living area, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. was listed at $250,000 and sold in 12 days right at the beginning of September for $220,000. And that was an all-cash sale. I'm sure when they did the inspection in there, they probably found a few things that were that needed to be done in there that maybe weren't so readily apparent, which is why they took such a big discount off that list price, that $30,000 discount. But congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on that one. Work to be done over there, but that's a great area to get a home for $220,000, and that was the lowest single-family home sale of the month. All right, I'm going to add the lowest Gulf access home sale of the month. And then when we go over again to the highest sales next, I'll talk about the highest off-water sale. But this Gulf access home was the lowest sale of the month. This one's over on Avalon Drive in the Yacht Club area. You know, the Yacht Club area after Hurricane Ian, or during Hurricane Ian, a lot of those properties, because that was the first area to be developed in the entire city of Cape Coral, and so there was a lot of homes down there in the southeast section of that Yacht Club area that were built in the 50s and 60s. They're at much lower elevations than the newer properties, so they were the ones that were a little more susceptible to the storm surge and the flooding during Hurricane Ian. And so we've seen a lot of these 50s and 60s homes in that Yacht Club area. It's a great waterfront location, but a lot of these older homes are selling for a little bit less because they are prone to those storm surges there because they're built so low. And this one was no exception. This is a property on Avalon Drive, just under 1,000 square feet of living area, so a smaller home. Again, direct Gulf access, so sailboat access, no bridges, really quick access out to open water. But this was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath built in 1970, and this thing was listed at $375,000, and it sold full price for $375,000. In a little bit over 2 months. It was on the market before it sold. So again, you know, the majority of the value in this property is obviously the waterfront, that specific location there. And we've seen a lot of these properties, the older ones, get knocked down, and these new beautiful palatial custom homes be built on these lots because, again, that waterfront location is so in demand. But $375,000 was the lowest Gulf access sale in the entire city of Cape Coral last month. And definitely congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on that one. Whatever they choose to do with that, I'm sure it's going to turn out great. But more than likely, I would guess that this property is probably going to be knocked down and a new construction home built on that beautiful lot. But congratulations to the buyers there. $375,000 was the lowest Gulf access sale of the month. All right. Now let's get to the fun ones. Let's jump over and talk about the highest sales of the month of September. Okay, so we'll once again start off with the highest condo sale. Then I'm going to talk about the highest off-water sale, off-water home sale, and then we'll jump over to the fun one, which is the highest sale for the entire month. And those are always, almost always going to be Gulf access homes. And in this case, this is the case this month as well. But let's talk about condos and townhomes. Again, I'm lumping everything in together: condos, townhomes, attached villas, basically anything that's not a single family home. And this community over there has taken the top spot in the last 4 or 5 months, I think, and that is the Marina Villas section of Cape Harbor in the southwest section of Cape Coral. If you're familiar with this channel, you know I really like that Cape Harbor community down there in the southwest. It's beautiful. I actually run a website, capeharbor.net. You can go there and take a look at the community and take a look at all the properties for sale there. I invite you to visit that if you've never been over there. But this property was one of the single-story attached villas on the waterfront that they have in there, 5810 Shell Cove Drive, Unit 122. Again, attached villa. So it's got a shared wall with one other unit there on the water. This is right by where the Chiquita Lock is, and that Chiquita Lock is actually coming out right now. They just got approval to remove that, but it's great direct Gulf access. You're just a couple of minutes out to open water here. But this home sold right at the end of September for $1,566,435. So again, brand new construction. These are big units too. It's just under 2,700 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and they come with a pool, a private pool there, and a boat slip as well. Obviously, the majority of the the value here is in that waterfront location. But these are beautiful villas over there, and they're in the middle of building phase 2 right now. They're in Marina Villas, so I assume we'll probably see some more of these top sales be in that Marina Villas community. But congrats to the buyers and the sellers on this beautiful attached villa. 1.566 $435 million was the top sale for condos and townhomes last month. All right, I haven't done this before, but we're going to include this month. I'm going to include the top off-water sale as well, and that's this property. Again, we're in the Southwest Cape. This is a beautiful, beautiful area down there in the Southwest Cape. A lot of Gulf access homes around there, but this home at 137 Southwest 35th Place was the top sale of the month. Again, brand new construction home. Was listed at $895,000, and it sold in only 2 days for $880,000, and that's pretty impressive. I mean, this home, it's on a triple lot, so it's a little bit larger of a lot, and because it's a little bit larger of a lot, they were able to build a separate great big RV garage that's attached to it. So the home itself is only a little bit over 1,900 square feet of living area. It's a 3-bedroom plus a den and 4 full baths. But again, it has that beautiful attached RV garage there, and that's just so in demand right now, something like that. If you're not familiar with Cape Coral, one of the restrictions is, the city restrictions is you cannot park an RV in the driveway unless you get a permit, and they limit you to the time that you're allowed to do that. So if you have an RV, you've got to either store it off-site. If you can get it in the back of your house, you can do that. Same thing for boats on trailers. You can't park a boat on a trailer in your driveway, so it's either got to go in the garage or in the back. And that's one of the main reasons that storage centers are such in high demand right now, so much so that the city of Cape Coral's placed a moratorium on building new storage centers because so many of them were popping up. But storage is definitely in demand, and that's pretty evident right here in this $880,000 sale because you've got this big garage that's attached to it. But this is a beautiful home. It's got a beautiful pool package and outdoor living space on it. And again, just brand new custom home, 3-bedroom plus a den, 4 full baths. And it was the top off-water sale last month at $880,000. So certainly congrats to the buyers and the sellers and their agents on that sale. All right, let's do the fun one, and that is the top sale overall. And these are almost always waterfront homes, and this is the situation this week as well. But this home, again, we're down there in the yacht club area, and I just talked about one of these situations, but this was a situation almost inevitably where one of these 1950s or 60s homes that got some flood damage during Hurricane Ian, it was either sold or the owners decided to just knock that house down and build up this brand new, beautiful custom home right there on that waterfront, because again, some of the best waterfront location in the entire city, but it's kind of locked up with some of these 50s and 60s built smaller homes. So we're seeing this more and more. But this home was a brand new custom home at 751 Coral Drive there in the yacht club area of the Southeast Cape. It's a 3-bedroom plus a den, 3.5 baths, a little bit bigger home, just over 2,900 square feet of living area. And this one was sold fully furnished, so a custom home fully furnished on that beautiful Gulf access canal there. It's got an incredible outdoor living space, 3-car garage. I mean, everything is just done up really, really nice with luxury finishes in here. But this home was listed at $3,649,900, so basically $3.65 million. It was on the market for 217 days, but it ended up selling at $3.346 million, $3,346,000, and that was the top spot for the month of September 2024. And it's been good. I think with the only exception of maybe 1 or 2 months so far this year, we've had at least one sale over $3 million every single month, and in some cases we've had 3 or 4 of them. So it's good to see these really higher end properties still transferring at a pretty good pace. There's still some demand for these ultra luxury custom homes here on the water in Cape Coral, but $3.346 million was the top spot for any property, much less Gulf access homes, last month. And definitely congrats to the buyers and the sellers and their agencies on that one, because that is a really, really great sign that we're seeing these higher dollar properties still transfer. All right, so let's get started with some general stats on the overall Cape Coral real estate market. This is inclusive of everything residential-wise. We're not going to talk about commercial in this video, but these stats will start off with the number of sales that occurred in September of 2024. Again, we're talking about anything single-family home, townhome, condo, on-water, off-water, the totality of the residential Cape Coral real estate market. So let's look at this first graph. This is the number of sales that we saw. Here, this is a 2-year graph, and we had a pretty big drop off from August to September. Last month, we only sold 395 total properties, and that's down from 514 in August of 2024. Overall, our market, we've sold a little bit more properties, or a few more properties this year than we did last year at this time. So we're still ahead from where we were last year, but we took a pretty big drop. That tends to happen towards this time of the year. As you can see on these charts, we tend, as we get towards the later months of the year, get into the holidays and things like that, things slow down quite a bit. So I'm not necessarily concerned with that, but it is a noticeable drop from August's number. And 395 was September 2024's number. If you look back 12 months ago to September of 2023, we had 68 more sales that month versus the same month this year. So there's 463 sales in September of 2023, which is 68 more sales than we saw in September 2024. So we'll look to see if that rebounds. If you look 2 years ago, it's a little bit closer. 2 years ago in September of 2022, it was 424 sales. So we're not out of the ballpark of where we've been the last couple of years. But we'll see if that number can rebound a little bit. In terms of the median price, which is the important thing, again, this is the totality of the residential Cape Coral real estate market. So this is everything from the little one-bedroom condo all the way up to the palatial giant golf access home, like that big $3+ million sale that we saw last month. But this is the chart for median price, overall median price. And the median price for the entire Cape Coral real estate market last month was $375,000. That's down only $10,000 from the previous month in August. So $385,000 was August's median price. If we look at this over the course of the last 12 months, our median price is down about 3.8% from this time last year, from September of 2023. Our median price back then was $390,000. And if you take this back a full 2 years, back to September of 2022, the median price then was $392,500. So we've kind of gone up and down a little bit, as you can see on this chart. And so it's not a hard and fast rule that we're down. If for all the 2 years, we're down on this graph 4.45%. So it's not a hard and fast rule that that's the exact number that we're down, because it does fluctuate a little bit. But the majority of that reduction, it looks like, has been in the last 12 months versus 24 months. In the last 12 months, the number is down 3.8%. Full 24 months back, we're down about 4.45% from where we were then. So, we can pretty much tell that we're in a little bit of a descending trajectory right now. It's not a really super noticeable downward shift, but our prices have come down a little bit. And we'll talk a little more about this, but I think it's also important to take into consideration that we've had a couple of years of heavy inflation. And if you stack, real estate's usually a pretty good hedge against inflation. So if you stack on another 10 or maybe even 15% inflation in the last 2 years onto this, we've had a little bit more stronger correction than this graph really shows. So I think that's important to take into consideration. And it's something that I really don't hear folks talk about as much as, we've had a pretty good couple of years of inflation here, and you really need to consider that when you're looking at the overall market correction that we've seen from the high point. Let's talk about inventory. Again, we're talking about the totality of the residential Cape Coral real estate market. This graph shows the 2-year number of active sales that are on the market at any given month. And you can see, we've talked about this in the previous month's report, but you see we kind of went up over the course of a couple of years and got up there pretty significantly. In the beginning of this year, we were talking a lot about this inventory number. There was a lot of worry out there that our inventory was kind of getting out of control. And luckily, it kind of peaked back in April, there was 4,310 properties in April of 2024. That's the high point on this 2-year chart. And ever since then, month over month, the inventory has been dropping down. It's been heading in the right direction to get us more back to a balanced market. And but however, this past month was the first time since that peaked out in April that the inventory popped back up a little bit. It didn't do so very significantly. The total inventory on the market in September 2023 was 3,700, and this is 2024. 3,700 in September 2024. August 2024 was 3,676. So we're only up 24 more properties versus last month, and that kind of makes sense when you saw that sale graph, that total number of sales go down as much as they did. It kind of makes sense that we would bump up a little bit. So I don't see this as being a trend and an upward trend, heading back into, too much inventory just yet, but we'll pay attention to that. We'll see if this hurricane that we just experienced here in the month of October affects the market in terms of the number of sales, and see if there's it starts to become a noticeable trend that the inventory is going back up. Don't necessarily think we're quite there yet. We might see the inventory start to tick back up a little bit as we get into the winter months, just because people generally put more properties on the market during those heavier times of the year where we've got our snowbirds and our visitors are down here. So 3,700 total properties on the market. When you compare that to 12 months ago, September of 2023, there was only 3,210. So we're definitely up about a little bit over 15% in terms of the inventory numbers of where we were last year. And if you take this back to 2022, when our inventory numbers were still plenty low before all of this big increase started happening, we only had 2,568 properties on the market in September of 2022. So we're still up, even though we've come down about 14.1% from the high point in April, but we're still up overall. Over the course of 2 years, we're still up just over 44%. So we've got some more work to do with these inventory numbers. And like I said, hopefully we'll continue to see a broader trend of that inventory number coming down, because we definitely don't want to see it to go back up. And, that's when we get into, those median prices start to go down a little bit further. So we'll pay attention to that. Definitely make sure you're subscribed so you can keep track of these things. And we'll see if that ends up being a trend in the increasing direction. But with that being said, let's start to break down these numbers by individual property categories. I always start off with the biggest section of the Cape Coral real estate market, and that is just the single-family homes that are not on a body of water. So it's the majority of the market out there. We've got plenty of single-family homes that are not on the water. So let's go ahead and start with this segment. Okay, so again, I'm going to start off with the off-water single-family homes. This is by far the largest segment of the Cape Coral real estate market. We've got a lot of single-family homes here in Cape Coral, and we've got a lot of waterfront, certainly, but definitely the off-water homes make up the majority of the sales that we see in any given month. And I'm going to follow sort of the same format here. Basically, I'm going to start off with the number of sales, so including everything that's a single-family home, not on a body of water. So basically anything, it could be small, it could be large, it could have a pool, not have a pool, new construction, built in 1960, everything's lumped together. But I'll break some of these down by some of the subcategories here. But let's start off with the 2-year graph of the number of sales. Take a look at this. So we've had some ups and downs on this graph. Again, these are just the number of sales that occurred for off-water single-family homes in any given month. You can see we had 286 of these sales last month, so that's down from August's number. We had 363 sales in the month of August 2024. So it's pretty much across the board. We had quite a bit fewer sales this past month versus earlier in the summer months. That's kind of to be expected. If you look at this chart, it kind of bounces up and down. We're coming up on an election. We're coming up on some interest rate reductions that we anticipate for mortgages. So some people are just kind of hitting the pause button to wait to get after a lot of this uncertainty and hopefully see some of these better interest rates. So it doesn't surprise me that we're down a little bit this month. I'm anticipating within the next few months we'll see that go back up. But 286 was the number of sales for this category last month. If you go back 12 months, we had in September of 2023, we did 311 of these sales. So a little bit more, and if you go back all the way 24 months ago into September of 2022, that was basically right before Hurricane Ian, we saw just a bit fewer sales that month versus this past month. September of 2022 was 282, so basically on par, only 4 fewer sales 2 years ago versus what we did this year. But we did sell 25 fewer of these homes than we did in September of last year. Let's break this number down a little bit. About 29% of these homes had pools, so about 71% didn't have pools. Obviously, the majority of these off-water homes out there do not have pools. But we did see 84 pool homes sell this past month. And something that's really interesting, and I've brought it up on previous reports, is new construction sales are really driving this segment of the market. We're seeing a lot of builders offering some really good incentives. They're offering some really good prices, but they're also offering some really good incentives for buyers right now. So it makes sense for a lot of the buyers in this sort of entry-level spot to go in there and buy a new construction property to try to get some of these incentives. But if you divide this into properties that were built 2023 or 2024, there was 140 out of these 286 total, 140 of them. That represents almost half of the entire market. That's 49% of these homes were brand new construction. The vast majority of those are up in the Northeast and the Northwest. That's where a lot of the production builders are building in those areas. It's the prices are really still competitive up there. They're not on, most of them are not on central water and sewer, but the prices are very, very competitive. And when you add in the builder incentives that they're offering, it makes total sense that we're seeing a lot of those sales up in the Northeast and the Northwest. But let's jump over to the median price again. So we'll start off across the board, and then I'll tell you a couple of the subsegments of this category. But take a look at this chart. So this is the median price chart for all off-water single-family homes in Cape Coral. Again, we had a pretty low month last month. Dipped down to the median price last month was $351,825. That's down from August's median price of $369,000. And you can see it's been pretty flat over the course of 2 years, but I would say in the last 12 months, we've started to notice just a more noticeable kind of trend in the downward trajectory. And actually, if you look at September, the median price for September of 2023, it was $375,000. So we're about $23,000 less this past month versus 12 months ago. It's about 6.2% reduction. But that 6.2 I don't think is a really hard and fast number, because again, we were at 369 last month, and that's only 6,000 less than what our September number was in 2023. So it's bounced up and down. I think there's definitely some softening in prices. I don't quite think it's necessarily 6%, but I definitely think it's within that 3% range, 3-4% range overall. If you look back 2 years ago, the median price was $372,500. So our median price last year in 2023 was actually higher than the median price in September of 2022. So again, the year 2022 to 2023 was pretty flat pricing. If anything, we've come down just a little bit, but it's maintained roughly the same, maybe 3% or so reduction, 3 or 4% in the last 12 months. But let's break this down by a couple of those subcategories. If we take the pools off, the median price for all off-water homes without pools, that number goes down to $340,000. That's basically the average, is $340,000 for a home without a pool, not on the water. If you look at the homes, those 84 or so sales that did have pools, the median price for a pool home off the water was $415,000. So there's still a really strong difference between pool homes and non-pool homes. It's definitely a luxury item, so you see fewer people if the market tightens, if the economy tightens. One of the first things that people leave off to the wayside are those luxury items. Pools are definitely a luxury item. but they're still selling for an average of about $75,000 more than homes without a pool in this category. And that's been pretty consistent over the course of this year. I mean, it's actually been up above $100,000 in 1 or 2 months. The difference between an off-water non-pool home and an off-water pool home has been roughly $75,000 to $100,000. So it still makes a lot of good sense to put a pool on a home if you're looking to invest in your house to make it worth maybe a little bit more than you would invest into it. Maybe you can put a pool in these days. They're a little bit more competitive. I know they were expensive for a while. I think they're coming down a little bit, but let's say you go in there and put a new pool in for $60,000. You know, on average, you can expect to get maybe $15,000 or $25,000 in equity for doing that. So it definitely makes sense if you're looking for something to do to your house to make that value go up, to go ahead and put a pool on. But let's break this down further too. I want to talk about central utilities. So the homes that are on central utilities, most of those are in the southeast and the southwest. Most of the homes in the northeast and the northwest are still on well systems and septic systems. But if you look at the central utilities homes, generally speaking, those homes on average are a little bit older than the homes in the northeast and the northwest, just because there wasn't a lot of development done up in the northern sections of Cape Coral until somewhat recently. Definitely probably mid-2000s is when we started to see the majority of the properties start to be built up there. But central utility homes, the average price or the median price, there was 93 sales on homes that are on central utilities that were not on the water. $352,500 was the median price for those central utility homes. So that's pretty interesting. But again, we're including everything that was built in 1950 and everything that's brand new construction. If you want to break this down further, we talked about the new construction homes. We had a lot of sales, but again, most of those were in the northeast and the northwest, so they're on well systems and septic systems, and they're a little bit cheaper than the homes that are down in the southeast and the southwest on central utilities. But the average price or the median price for a home that was built in 2023 or 2024, $262,200. Only 18 of those properties that were brand new construction actually had a pool with them, and of those 18, the median price was $540,000. So a new construction home with a pool on it averaged out at about $540,000 last month. Now, if you look at the flip side of that, you know, the homes that were older than 2023, the overall, basically this is covering all the resale properties, the pre-owned properties. Homes that were built previous to 2023, the median price was $350,000. And if you take the pool homes off of that and just go on, basically it's the most entry-level portion of this segment of the market, which are resale properties, older resale properties without a pool. Median price goes all the way down to $324,000. So if you're really looking for something affordable, these off-water homes without pools on them, $324,000 is a fair amount under the total median price for the entire market. So that covers the median price over there. Now I want to jump over to the inventory, because obviously inventory has been very important this year. And here's the graph on that. Here's the 2-year. So again, just like we saw in the general market stats, we had this big incline in inventory up until basically spring of this year. Spring of 2024 is when we peaked out, and that's when we peaked out in this category as well as a lot of the other ones. But April was the high point for our inventory in this 2-year chart. We had 2,442 properties on the market in April of this year, and we've come down about 11.5% since then, which is good news. We're heading in the right direction. We had 2,161 of these properties actively on the market in the month of September, and that's up slightly from the previous month. August, we had fewer than that. We had about 28 less in August. There was 2,133 properties, so we've ticked back up a little bit. I'm not ready to call, you know, a trend. I still think we're overall on the decreasing side of the inventory, and until, you know, we see a couple of more months with inventory climbing back up, I'm not ready to say that we're heading in the wrong direction on inventory, but we definitely went up a little bit this past month. But that's being said, we still got our inventory issues here, and we still need to take we still need to do some more work to get some of this extra inventory off the market, because when you look at 12 months ago in September of 2023, there was only 1,922 of these properties on the market. So we're still up about 12.4% from this time last year. And if you go back 2 years ago in 2022, when our inventory was still really, really low, we only had 1,602 properties on the market in September of 2022. So we're up almost double from that. We're up 97.33% since 24 months ago. So we've got more work to do. We've been heading in the right direction since April, certainly on the inventory front, at least in this category. We had a little bit of a hiccup this last month, and it's gone back up very, very slightly, only 28 properties. But we want to see that trend continue and the inventory get back down to, at a minimum, last year's level. If we had our preference, we would be lower than last year's level, but we'll just have to see. There probably will be a few more properties coming on the market as we get into the heavier buying season of the winter and the spring. This category is not as affected with that inventory spike as we see in other properties that are more heavily favored by snowbirds, like condos and Gulf access homes that we're going to talk about in a minute. But we'll just have to keep an eye on this. We really want to make sure that our inventory continues to go down, because otherwise we are going to see that median price track down a little bit. But I think overall we've been heading in the right direction, but we just got a little bit more work to do on the inventory front. Okay, so Gulf access single family homes. Again, this is the entire city of Cape Coral. Gulf access homes are only found in the southeast, the southwest, and the northwest. We don't have any Gulf access homes up in the northeast. But obviously this is our flagship property type here in Cape Coral. Everyone loves the Gulf access real estate, the canal front real estate, but basically this category includes everything that's on a body of salt water. So either a saltwater canal or maybe on the river itself. But this is a much slower category in the summertime versus our main season in the winter and spring. Obviously, this type of home, there's a lot more retirees, maybe snowbirds and things like that, that are attracted to this type of property. And so we see a lot more sales in the winter and spring months. But let's dive into it. Again, so we'll start off with the number of sales. This graph is a 2-year chart of the number of Gulf access single family homes that sold. And, like everything else, this went down last month compared to August 2024. So we had a total of 51 of these Gulf access single family homes close last month, and that's down from 70 in August of 2024. But you can definitely see on here, this is really, the activity is very, very heavily weighted towards the spring months. So obviously the 2-year high point on this graph was actually back in May of this year. We sold 110 properties back in May. So we're selling less than half than this past month than what we did at the high point earlier this spring. So it's still not really a trend in either direction. You saw we did this in the last 2 years. It's a little tough to gauge because for 2022, because that big dip from September to October of 2022 coincided with Hurricane Ian, and everything kind of ground to a halt for a little while there after that hurricane. And I don't know how much of an effect Hurricane Milton's going to have. It's certainly not going to have as much of an effect that that Hurricane Ian did. We didn't see nearly as much damage, flooding and things like that here that we did during Hurricane Ian. And a lot of it was just minor light damage. I think there was some flooding in certain areas. Some low-lying areas of older Gulf access homes got some water. But nothing compared to what we saw in Hurricane Ian. I know myself, you see some leaves on the ground behind me on my pool decks because a few of my ceiling screens definitely blew out. But that's about it, the only damage that we got here up in the northwest section of Cape Coral. The water got pretty high, but to my knowledge, none of my neighbors got any water in their house. So we were pretty lucky with Hurricane Milton. And I'm actually going to be doing a video probably next week showing you. I stayed here for that hurricane and documented the whole thing. So make sure you stick around and subscribe to the channel so you can see that whole thing. I'm going to put it all together so you can at least a little bit experience what it's like to go through one of these here in Southwest Florida. But make sure you stay tuned for that. But Gulf Access Homes, 51 of them sold last month in September 2022. Let's look at the median price, because we hit a low point, a 2-year low point in median price for those 51 properties. Now, again, 51 properties, we don't have a really big sample size, so I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a trend. But if you look at this graph, we got a pretty big drop from the median price from August to September. Last month, the median price was $700,000 even over the course of those 51 sales that we saw. That's down from August's median price of $776,250. You know, if you take it across the board, looking back 12 months to September of 2023, our median price is down about 9.3%. But you can see in between, you know, 12 months ago and now, it's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone back and forth. When we don't have a really big sample size of these properties, you could just have a certain month where you sell a few more higher dollar properties. And in actuality, when you take out October of 2022, because that was kind of a wonky month with Hurricane Ian, you take that out, the two-year high point on this graph was actually February of this year. In February, our median price was $852,500, so over $150,000 higher just in February than we did last month. So I don't put a really high degree of confidence on, you know, a trend in one direction or the other. I really think that people overall are spending roughly the same amount for these types of properties. The key difference, I think, is the same amount of money buys a little bit better property now than it did 2 years ago. And I think people overall, again, they've got a budget in mind for their perfect, you know, Southwest Florida Gulf Access house. They're going to spend this much money, and it's just that same dollar amount's buying a little bit better properties these days versus 2 years ago. So we'll continue to check this out, but I really anticipate, especially once we get into the first few months of next year, that median price is going to bounce back up. So we'll just have to see how far it bounces up. But I'm not overall concerned with the Gulf Access real estate market right now, just because it dropped that 76 and change $1,000 from August to September. I just think we didn't have very many properties for that sold last month. But you know, taking back to September of 2022 on this graph, the median price back then was $758,775. So that's why I say there's not a huge difference here. We've bounced up and down since then. But if you want to look at that over the course of 24 months, that puts us down about 6.8%. And then, of course, last year, 12 months ago in September of 2023, we're at 772. So that represents a decrease of 9.3% in the last 12 months. But again, don't get hung up too much on those numbers when we don't have this big sample size and we have a really big disparity in the number of properties that sell from, you know, the first and second quarter versus the third and fourth quarter of the year. Our numbers are going to bounce up and down. So we'll just have to see what the overall trend continues. It's going to probably take a few more months to get into this to recognize whether or not we've actually got a significant trend in one direction or the other. But I fully expect to see more of these Gulf Access homes sale as we get into the winter months, especially the first quarter of 2025. So let's jump over to inventory. Again, the 2-year inventory chart on this. And, you know, in spite of the general market stats that we looked at and the off-water single-family homes stats that we looked at, we continue to go down in inventory for Gulf Access homes last month. Last month, there was 701 properties on the market. That's down from August's number of 708 properties on actively on the market. And so we're down from the high point on this chart, which again was February was 2024 was the high point for our inventory charts. We had 905 of these Gulf Access single family homes on the market in February of this year. So we're down 22.5% from that high point, and you know, we're just 7 months ago basically. So we're heading very much in the right direction. We still have some work to do on this. If you go back 12 months, the inventory was only 582. in September of 2023. So we're still up a full 20.4% over the course of the last 12 months. And then certainly if you go back 24 months, there were 464 of these properties actively listed for sale in September of 2022. So we're still up 51.1% from where we were 24 months ago. So there's still work to be done, but we're getting closer and closer to a little more market equilibrium. We just need to see a few more of these come off the market, either sell or just be taken off the market. And that's part of the reason we're seeing this inventory decrease. It's not necessarily that we're selling a bunch of properties, although we have sold more properties, and these included this year versus the first 9 months of last year. So we're doing a little bit better, at least in terms of number of sales versus last year. But we're still not selling as many as new listings that are coming on. So we still have a discrepancy between sales and brand new listings coming on the market. It's just that those sales combined with listings that are expiring and not coming back on, or just being terminated and taken off the market completely and maybe becoming a seasonal or annual rental or something like that. For one reason or another, there are more properties coming off the market than coming on. So that's helping us out tremendously. And if, we'll talk more about this when I talk about advice for sellers in this Cape Coral real estate market. But, if you've got a property out there that's sitting, particularly a golf access home, and you're priced at a point where you're not seeing any showings and things like that, you really would do yourself a favor and do the greater market as a whole a favor if you would just take that property off the market until either the market kind of kicks back in, or at least we've got more buyers in the market. So I think some of that's starting to happen, which is why our inventory is down that 22.5% from the high point in February. So heading in the right direction on inventory for golf access homes. And even though a couple of these other categories inventory went up, we actually went down. Now it's not much. It's only 7 fewer properties versus that were on the market last in August versus September. But overall, we're heading in the right direction. All right, let's talk about condos and townhomes in the city of Cape Coral for the month of September 2024. This particular segment of the market has really taken a beating this last year or so. The HOA fees particularly have gone up as these insurance rates and a couple of the requirements went into effect for condos, particularly those condos that are 3 stories and above. There's new regulations in place that say you've got to have a certain amount of money set aside for structural repairs and engineering inspections every so often. And really, it's mostly due to insurance rates, but those HOA fees, either monthly or quarterly HOA fees, have gone up a fair amount from 2023 to 2024. So our overall number of sales have been somewhat down this year versus last year, whereas, all of the other categories that we're covering today, we've had more sales this year versus this time last year. Condos, we've actually had a few less sales, but it's going to be interesting to see because, after Hurricane Ian at the end of 2022, condos had a pretty good spike. We saw the high point of the median price for condos actually come out in spring of 2023 versus most of the single family homes, which peaked out in spring of 2022. I guess we'll see in the wake of Hurricane Milton if there's any correlation to maybe folks feeling a little bit safer in condos versus single family homes and a few more sales happening in the wake of these hurricanes. We'll just have to see. I'm going to be very interested to see if that correlates at all with with the hurricanes just coming through. So, but let's take a look at the number of sales overall. This is a slow time of year for condos anyway, but it was a particularly slow month for condos in the month of September 2023. Look at this chart. There was only 14 condos sold in the entire city of Cape Coral last month. That is not many at all, and it's by far the lowest month on this 2-year chart. A little bit less than half of these were golf access condo. There were 6 golf access condo sales and 8 off-water or 8 non-golf access condos that sold last month. But 14 is a particularly low month, even for these fall months, which are slower anyways. But I'm not sure what was going on with condos last month, but we'll just have to see if that bounces back up. Hopefully it does. Just like the Gulf access properties, these condos, they tend to have a much more active season in the winter and spring for the same reason that the Gulf access homes do. Just it's a product that is largely favored by seasonal residents for snowbirds, things like that, retirees, and it's just much more active in the spring and in the winter months. But let's take a look at the median price. Of course, I'm not putting a high degree of emphasis behind this number because, again, there's only 14 properties that sold. We don't have a big enough sample size to really give us a good indication of where that actual median price falls right now. But the median price last month over the course of those 14 sales was $246,250. If you take out January of 2023, which again, that was a little wonky month because we were coming out of that hurricane, that 246,250 is the low point for the last 2 years. So it's pretty interesting, actually. And if you look at those, how many were there? There were 6 Gulf access condos that sold. Over the course of those 6, the median price for those was $305,000. So just a little bit north of $300,000 for a Gulf access condo last month. But $246,250 is definitely on the low end. Again, I'm not ready to call a big trend in one direction or the other. There's definitely been a trend and a downward trajectory over the course of the last 2 years. But I don't know if we're down that much more than where we were 7 or 8 months ago. I just think that condos overall have been pretty flat. And let's take a look at the inventory. So again, we saw these peak out earlier this year. We had a very strong ascending trajectory for condo inventory, just like everything else, and it peaked out in February where we had 527 condos on the market. Now, we've headed in the right direction ever since then, and it's for the same reasons that I've talked about in the other categories. But we did tick up a little bit in September versus where we were in August. So we had about 8 more properties on the market in September versus August for a total of 432. We're still down 18% from that high point in February, but we're definitely up from 12 months ago, which is 11.3% increase from where we were in September of 2023, and a full 73.5% increase in condo inventory versus where we were in September of 2022. There's only 249 condos on the market in September of 2022. So to have 432 properties sitting on the market right now in September 2024, when you're only selling 14, it's not a really strong sign for the condo market. And like I said, we'll just have to see if this, Hurricane Milton coming through, even though it didn't do a lot of damage psychologically, maybe it can cause some more people to maybe favor condos over single-family homes because maybe they feel safer or something like that. We'll just have to take a look at that because I think there was some correlation to that back after Hurricane Ian. So we'll just have to see if we see those same numbers kind of bounce up a little bit in the wake of Hurricane Milton. But 432 total condos on the market. Of those, 48.6% were Gulf access, almost half of them, 210. So again, the 210 Gulf access condos sitting on the market, we only sold 6. It's not a really strong month whatsoever, but we'll surely see these numbers tick back up, especially we'll see both probably the inventory numbers and the sales tick back up after we get towards the first few months of the year. But we'll pay attention to this because it's been a hard year for condos, and hopefully they can turn around a little bit and have a really strong winter-spring season this year. But condos overall been very, very slow. All right, let's talk about vacant residential lots. We're not going to talk about commercial lots or multifamily lots. These are basically single-family home lots in this entire city of Cape Coral, although these numbers are heavily weighted towards the Northeast and the Northwest in areas that are not on central water and sewer. But take a look at this 2-year graph. This is the number of sales, and we went up a fair amount over the, we had a couple of slower months there, about 3 slower months there from basically June, July, and August, and then we've peaked back up here in the month of September. But we had 116 of these vacant residential lots sell in the month of September of 2023. So we bounced up pretty good. A lot of that could have to do with those interest rates coming down a little bit, that we saw that earlier in September. So I think some of that has to do with the builders snapping up a couple of more lots in especially the Northeast and the Northwest. Again, this is not a really big, the central utility lots. Most of them are in the Southeast and the Southwest, and it's not a big segment of the market. There were only 17 of these lots that sold that had central water and sewer on them. So of those 116, only 17, which is a little bit under 15%, actually wore central water and sewer, had central water and sewer. If you want to talk about the Gulf access lots, only 8 of these were Gulf access lots. But 116 was a pretty good month for lot sales, even over the course. I mean, obviously, you can see we had some months there, basically in the middle of 2023. We had some really high sales in the high 100s. But we're still doing all right in terms of the number of lot sales. And I think, again, a lot of those could be due to the fact that some of the production builders are still buying these lots in really substantial numbers, particularly in the Northeast and the Northwest. But let's look at the median price for these 116 lot sales. And this has been a very, very flat graph over the course of the last 24 months. Basically, as you can see here, the median price for those 116 lot sales last month was $43,000. That's down just very, very slightly from August. August, our median price was $43,750, but pretty much throughout this entire year, and really the course of the last 2 years, it's been somewhere in the mid 40s every single month. So our lot values haven't really shifted that much at all in the last couple of years. Again, if you want to break these down by the lots that are on central utilities, of those 17 lots that sold that were on central utilities, the median price for that was $72,900. But again, we don't have a big sample size, so I can't take too much weight in that number, because you just go back to August, 1 month previous, the median price for these central utility lots was $93,000. So it's somewhere getting closer to $100,000 is usually about what that central utility lots they tend to go for in the Southeast and the Southwest. A lot of it has to do with whether or not they have an assessment balance on them. Assessment lots with the assessments, the city utility assessments paid on them, tend to sell for closer to that $100,000 mark, versus lots that have a big assessment balance. They'll be a little bit less than that. But $72,900 was the median for those 17 central utility lots. Of those, what did I say, 8 Gulf access lots. Of those 8, the median price for that was $250,000. And again, that's a pretty good middle point. You're going to see more Gulf access lots in the Southwest. They tend to maybe sell for a little bit more, above $300,000, and a lot of that also has to do with whether there's a seawall on it or not. A lot of the lots in the Northwest with seawalls are somewhere around that middle 200s. Without seawalls, it can even dip, and if it's farther out from open water, it can get down under that $200,000 mark. But 250 is a pretty good bellwether for where the Gulf access lot market is right now. But again, not very many of those sales occurred last month, and we'll probably see a few more of those lot sales occur in the first couple quarters of next year. But let's jump over to the inventory. The lot inventory has been the complete opposite, more or less, than the other residential categories. So if you look at this 2-year inventory chart, we almost had 2,000 lots on the market back in September of 2022, and we've consistently, month over month over month, come down from that high point on this graph. And so we had a total of 1,159 vacant lots for sale last month. That's down only 4 from the previous month. So it hasn't been a pretty large drop at all. It's just kind of trickled down a little bit month over month for the last 2 years. But 1,159 was definitely a low point for this 2-year chart. And I'm sorry, I think 1147 was June's number, so that was the low point. So it was slightly lower in June, but again, I think the overall trend is pretty clear that it's dropping. Again, if you want to break these up by lots that are on the market that have central utilities on it, again, represents about 15.2% of this overall lot market. There was only 176 central utility lots actively on the market in September. And if we want to talk about the Gulf access lots, again, there's only Gulf access lots in the southwest, southeast, and northwest, because there are no Gulf access canals in the northeast. 398 total Gulf access lots on the market. These lots, it's a little bit different than the single family homes or the condos or things like that. You'll see a lot of these lots maybe be overpriced, and they'll sit on the market sometimes for more than 2 years, just because it's a little bit easier to leave a lot on the market out there with a sign in the yard versus, trying to leave an overpriced residential listing on the market for a long time. It's a little bit easier to leave these lots on the market. So we're seeing a lot of these overpriced lots still on the market, but still a fairly healthy number of lot sales, especially when you're talking about the northwest and northeast off central utilities. But overall, lot inventory is coming down and our prices are sticking roughly the same. Okay, I want to finish up these categories breakdown by talking about specifically the rental market, because again, the reason I think that this is becoming a more and more important part of our real estate market is, like I said, we're not selling more properties, more residential properties than new listings are coming off the market. It's just that our inventory numbers are coming down because not only are some selling, some are just completely coming off the market. They're either expiring, the listings are expiring, or they're being terminated. And those listings have to go somewhere. Either people have just decided to continue living in the property for a while until this market returns to more of a seller's market, or they're trying to do something else with that. And one of those things is they're turning these into rental properties. So whereas we're seeing overall the inventory numbers coming down in the for sale side of things, check out the 2-year inventory for rentals, available rentals. We're heading in the opposite direction with the rental inventory, and we're actually getting towards the high point of these 2-year graphs. Actually, 4 months ago was the high point for these properties on the market actively for rent. It was 877 properties on the market back in June. So we've come down a little bit. We're at 849 total for rent properties on the market right now. But one thing that's very important to note is these are our internal realtor MLS numbers. So what these don't include oftentimes are these big apartment complexes that are coming online, these 200 and 300 unit apartment complexes that developers have put up quite a few of those in the last 4 or 5 years or so, and some of them are still coming online. So these inventory numbers don't include those big buildings coming online. So we're getting a substantial amount of for rent properties out there, and I'm hearing from my property manager colleagues that it's increasingly being harder and harder to find decent tenants at these prices that we've become accustomed to over the last couple of years. But inventory is definitely up right now, and it's probably going to continue to be up more and more, but we'll just have to pay attention to that. Now, in terms of the median rental price, of course, the more inventory you get out there and the less demand that's there, your median rents are going to be coming down. So median rental price for last month in September 2024 was $2,100. Again, that's across the board. So that's everything: single family homes, 2 and 3 bedroom condos, everything all lumped together. The averaged out, or the median price, the rental price, was $2,100 a month. That's up very slightly from August's number. $2,050 a month was August's number, but again, the broader trend is downward in terms of the monthly rental price. So especially for investors in the market right now, your return on investment for these rental properties is diminishing, especially in the wake of maybe insurance costs coming up and things like that. You got some costs increasing and these median rents are going down. So it's great news if you're a tenant, but maybe not so great news if you are a rental property owner. But $2,100 was the median rental price last month. 2 years ago it was $2,200. So roughly close to 10% drop from where we were 2 years ago. and actually 2,200 stuck around there. The high point in this graph was actually in October of 2022. Let's take that out because that was right after the hurricane, but high point without that month would have been February of 2023, where it was $2,400 a month. That kind of makes sense. We had it bump up in the wake of Hurricane Ian just because there were a larger demand of people needing to rent properties for maybe a year while their place got fixed up if they received flood damage or something like that. So it was a little bit higher up there, but even 12 months ago in September of 2023, the median rent price was $2,200 a month. So we're down $100 a month from just where we were last year, and I fully anticipate that within the next 12 months, we're probably going to see that median price, get underneath that $2,000 a month. We'll just have to see, because again, a lot of these for sale properties that are out there that are not being sold, these sellers are not being able to sell them for what they think they should be able to get out of them. So they're trying to wait out the market, and while they're waiting out the market, they're putting these properties on the market as rentals, and that's causing that inventory along with those new construction apartment complexes to go up. So our rental rates are definitely heading in the downward direction, and we'll probably continue to see that for at least the foreseeable future. All right, so if you're a buyer in the Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice to you? What do you need to be thinking about? What do you need to be paying attention to? Well, again, we are very much in a buyer's market still, as we have been pretty much all year right now in 2024, and I easily will see that continuing into at least the rest of this year and probably into the first few months of next year at a minimum. Interest rates are going to start coming down. We're going to see another Fed cut here coming up prior to the end of the year, and those will eventually translate into lower mortgage rates. You need to take advantage of that as best you can, because I think that's going to create some more demand as those interest rates get down, as we get out of the uncertainties of being in an election year. I think more people are going to be coming into the market, at least anecdotally. That's what I'm seeing in my general real estate practice. We're seeing some folks sit out on the sidelines waiting for that election to be over and waiting for maybe that interest rate to fall in around 6 or maybe lower percent for a conventional 30-year mortgage. So that's going to happen here pretty soon. Of course, we'll get past this election in early November, and then those interest rates will also kind of start coming down, and we'll be seeing some affordability, at least more affordability, come back to this real estate market. And as that happens, I think we will have more buyers enter this market. So you just need to be paying attention to that, because our inventory numbers, while they did kind of tick up a little bit this past month because we didn't have very many sales in September, I think the broader trend is the inventory is starting to come down. And if you stack a few more buyers on top of that with lower interest rates and the affordability goes up a little bit, eventually you're going to see that median price start to tick back up again, because long term, this market, the Southwest Florida real estate market, long term, we have a very, very bright future. There's still a ton of people that want to be here in spite of hurricanes like Hurricane Milton and Helene. There's still plenty of people that want to be in Southwest Florida, and specifically Cape Coral, Florida. So long term, you can absolutely bet that prices will start to increase at some point. We have a little bit of a lull here. We've got a buyer's market. I don't know how long that's going to last. So if you're thinking of buying a property here in Cape Coral or anywhere in Southwest Florida in the next couple of years, you really ought to maybe think about doing it sooner than later, and maybe striking while the iron's hot, because there's still plenty of inventory out there, even though it's going down. And you can kind of play one seller off the other right now, and negotiate a really good deal for yourself, both in price and in terms. So if you are a buyer, you're planning on being a buyer in the next 2 or 3 years, you may look at your options and see if you can buy something within the next 6 months or so. Because again, I don't know how long this buyer's market is going to last. At some point, it will give way, and the sellers will be in charge once again, as they had been for a better part of the last 5 years. So if you're a buyer, just pay attention. Make sure you're subscribed so you can see this report every single month, so you can tell when the trajectory is going back up in terms of the prices and things like that. And I invite you to get a hold of me, and we can talk about it a little more to your, specifics to your individual situation. We can talk about what the best strategy is for you on when to finally strike, when that iron is going to be hottest for you and you get the best deal possible. So reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. Call, text, or email me anytime. You can even schedule a Zoom meeting down if you want to do it in person, if maybe you're not in the actual area right now. There's a link down there to schedule a Zoom meeting one-on-one with me. Would love to hear from you. Love to hear about your goals and tell you a little bit about how I can help you out with those. So still a great buyer's market. Just be smart about it. All right, so if you're a seller in this Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice to you, and what do you need to be thinking about right now? Well, as I just told the buyers, we're still in very much a buyer's market right now, and you need to be a lot more aggressive as a seller than you had to be even 12 months ago, and certainly 24 months ago. There are some bright spots to think about right now. There are some, inventory numbers are coming down a little bit, even though it ticked up this past month a little bit. It was pretty much flat. But I think the broader trajectory is the inventory numbers are coming down. So that's a bright spot for sellers right now in this Cape Coral real estate market. But overall, you still have to compete with a lot of properties out there on the market. There's a lot more properties right now on the market than there were certainly 12 months ago and definitely 24 months ago. So you need to make sure that your property is looking as great as possible. It needs to really pop on both the pictures and when you first walk into the front door. I always tell folks, the biggest thing I tell sellers is, buyers are going to decide whether or not they want to buy your property within the first 5 seconds of walking through the front door. So make that experience from the drive up. Curb appeal is obviously very important. Make that buyer experience from when they pull up to when they walk in. That first 5 seconds of looking around when they walk through the front door, make that as positive as possible. Make sure it looks good and it smells good, all that great stuff. And then beyond that, you just need to price your property right. You need to be a little more competitive with those other listings that are out there, and you need to take probably a little bit less money than you felt like you needed to at least 12 months ago or so. So just be smart about how you market your property. Be even more smart about or even smarter about how you price your property, and then maybe get creative with some incentives that you give out there for buyers. The new construction properties, one of the reasons that they're doing so well right now, and especially the off-water single-family home market, and we're seeing almost half of that market be brand new construction homes, is because those builders are giving a lot of incentives. They're buying down buyers' mortgage rates. They're giving them, paid closing costs and things like that. They're doing some more creative things that are not necessarily on the price end of things, or aside from the price aspect of things. So you need to get a little more creative, price your property right. If you've got a property out there on the market right now and you're not getting any showing activity or anything like that, you're probably too high. You're probably priced too high, and you're not doing yourself any favors, and certainly not the overall market as a whole any favors by leaving that property on the market. So take it off, or price it appropriately. Just be aware that if you do take that property off the market, you're going to have to be aggressive with your rental price if they're going to turn it into a rental or something like that. Because again, as we saw, rental inventory numbers are way up. So it's a little more difficult to be a seller these days. But you've been in the driver's seat for much of the last 4 or 5 years, and now it's the buyer's turn to be in the driver's seat for a little bit. So you just need to make sure you're pricing your property right, and then just being smart and doing everything that you can to make that listing more attractive to the other 100 listings that are out there competing with you. All right, so let's wrap this up. Let me give you my overall synopsis of the Cape Coral real estate market as it stands right now in October of 2024. Well, basically, we've had a really good year this far. It was kind of up in the air as to whether or not we would have a good year. January of this year, 2024, was particularly slow, and that scared a lot of us. We thought it was going to really, really slow down. But then after January, the market really took off, and we've overall had a better year this year, at least in terms of the number of sales, than we did in 2023. And 2023 wasn't a bad year. But definitely now we've got our inventory issues that are out there, and that's pushing some of the median prices down a little bit. And, there's just a lot more inventory on the market right now than there was this time last year. Now, definitely we're seeing that inventory number, the trend is downward, which is great, especially if you're a seller. But I think there's definitely going to be at least a few more months where the buyers are in charge of this Cape Coral real estate market. And so if you are a buyer, take an opportunity right now where you've got this window where you can go in there and negotiate yourself a really good price and terms on a residential Cape Coral real estate sale right now. If you're a seller, you can afford to hang in there and maybe take your property off the market for a while. Definitely do that, because there's nowhere to go but up. This overall market long term has nowhere to go but up. There's still so many people that want to live here in Southwest Florida in spite of the hurricanes. And we've had a abnormally high few years of hurricanes here. And hopefully that means, just like every other cyclical event, we'll have some years where we don't see hardly any storms at all here in the Florida Peninsula. But we'll just have to see. If you look over the 200-year chart or whatever, you've seen some years back in the 1800s where it was over twice the number of major hurricanes that hit the Florida Peninsula. So we're not in uncharted territory, even though it feels like that. But definitely the storm is scaring some folks off, and so we'll probably continue to see more properties come on the market, at least here in the short term. But if you're a buyer, take advantage of that. And if you're a seller, if you got to get out and you want to get out, price your property right, and you'll still be able to sell it because there's still plenty of buyers out there. Otherwise, maybe take your property off the market and let's wait this out for a year or two and wait for these prices to come back in. Because again, overall, still going to be plenty of people that want to live here in Southwest Florida and specifically Cape Coral. So overall, I think we're in a healthy position right now. We had a slow month, but we've had a better year, and we'll just continue to watch that as we round out the year. And I think we're setting ourselves up for a really strong winter and spring season. But if something changes and we see something on the horizon that's not currently there, I'll definitely be letting you know on these monthly Cape Coral real estate market reports. So stick around. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got a little bit out of this. And if you did, and you wouldn't mind, hit that like button for me. It just helps me out a little bit. And again, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. These are very long videos. I understand that. I'm trying to give you as much information as possible in this format of 45 minutes, an hour, hour and 15 minutes, however long this ends up being. But again, the weekly videos that I do are much shorter. They're much more succinct and on a variety of topics. So we cover everything. If you're interested at all in Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, even if you live here now or you're thinking of moving to Cape Coral or moving to Fort Myers or moving to Punta Gorda or anything like that, make sure you're subscribed. And if I can do anything for you, reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you on the next video here in just a few days. I'm going to be showing you what it's like to go through one of these hurricanes here in Southwest Florida. I documented the entire process. I stayed here at my house in the northwest section of Cape Coral during Hurricane Milton, so stay tuned for that video. I'll have it out in just a few days.
Like and subscribe. Just kidding.